not struggle with, but it's not very good in the actual core rules on how to run, which is ship combat. So I've kind of come up with what is a loose system for running ship combat that is slightly different than what his rules is written, that you could possibly add to your campaign, that adds a little bit of aspects from that I've pulled from things from Adventurers League, that I've pulled from other sources that are rules is written, but instead I've mounted them to a ship instead of the basic core mechanics of a ship, which we will go through today. So we're going to introduce our players and their characters now, and we'll start from the right side of the room with...
I'm Andrew Haggett. My character is Draxus, a enchantment wizard. So he's perfectly suited for ship combat.
Yep. So the good thing about this sort of thing is that think of so kind of like pulled loosely from like something like Star Trek, for example. And you will be able to somehow buff the ship in some way so that when you get shot at, less bad things happen.
I'll give it all she's got.
There you go. And next we have...
Yeah, I'm Jeremy Johnston. Angelo and I and many of the other Dungeon Masters here today are part of a group called Unite the Factions. We run Dungeons and Dragons at Fan Expo for a few years now, and we put on events every month on our Discord server. Check us out at unitethefactions.com. But today I am playing a Dark Elf, or a Drow, just to be those people that say it that way. And they are a pirate named Lolone.
So it sounds like you are going to be the helmsman of this ship.
Yeah, I am a warlock, but I am also a pirate.
Perfect.
Background.
Perfect.
So I think I can steer the ship.
You can. All right. Then we have...
My name is Louise Penny. I'm going to be playing Zara of Shadowflame. She is a half-elf ranger, and I'm a D&D player. I was here all weekend. I've come to a few events. Like, come out, you guys are going to have a blast. And yeah, that's
And your character you said was a...
She's a ranger.
As a ranger. Okay, so you're probably going to be the ship's gunner in this encounter. And then we have...
Hey folks, I'm Jeff Arneson, DM, or Dungeon Master Jeff, yeah, that's what I call myself. I ran the Dungeon Master Academy earlier today. I run games all over the place. It's lots of fun. Love UTF people. You should join us for more games. Today I'm going to play Bear, I think is what I'm going to do. Yeah, he's going to be an 11th level barbarian shifter, and he'll make up some nonsense as we go along.
Excellent. So it sounds like you're going to be the guy taking the big ball that is going to be fired and shoving it into the cannon.
That sounds right about my
All right.
I'm Denise Colby. I'll be playing Muriel Faithless, who is a cleric, half elf. I know she's heard it all before. And yeah, I DM when we need DMs because I always want to play.
Amazing. So I also have this same thing with playing. Anyway, so it sounds like you are going to be the person who aims the cannon.
Okay.
Alrighty. So ballista teams or cannon teams in the regular rule set have basically it takes like 3 actions to load a ballista to fire. Now, when you fire ballista, it's very anticlimactic because all it does is a flat 3d10 damage, which will never break through a ship's hull the way that the rules are written. The mechanics are very poor for ship's combat, so sometimes we have to improvise, and this is going to be kind of like a way that we're going to be able to do that. So basically, so now we've kind of had it so that 2 ships are coming at each other. They should actually, because usually when ships they kind of come at each other, and then what they do is they broadside each other. So the way that this mechanic works is everybody in the crew gets to. A lot of time when ship combat's happening, you have a bunch of people like ready to do something, but they're just standing around. There's less players, and there's not as much that happens, so that the players kind of get somewhat bored when nothing's really happening until the boarding happens. What we do is that we have our helmsman make a water vehicles or spell jamming check, depending on which setting you're using.
Spell jamming check. Okay, so what should I roll?
It will be so now this one is going to be on your sheet. Normally what it is a wisdom check that uses your proficiency bonus.
Okay.
If you are proficient with water vehicles.
All right, I am.
As we all are.
All right, so I will roll this. And I got 14. Does 14 pass?
So you notice that the captain over here of the ship is having trouble keeping his ship on track. And it's coming in a little slower than he would like, and he's kind of angling a little bit off. But we'll see how that plays out.
1 degree.
1 degree, just 1 degree. So as you guys get closer, the captain of the ship is going to yell at his cannon team to load the cannon. So you please make me an athletics check to shove a cannonball in the cannon.
For my athletics, I have a +7, which is kind of nice because I'm a barbarian, stacked with strength and all that fun stuff.
Oh yeah.
25.
So his character just goes and he shoves the cannonball in without any issues. It's like he's done this a million times. The next thing we need our engineer to decide how he wants to empower the ship. Would you like to make the ship's hull stronger by, because spelljammers and stuff are generally pumped up with some kind of arcane magic. That's how they fly. That's how they go through wild space. We can use that to also benefit the ship in some way. Would you like to empower the hull? Would you like to make the sails push the ship faster? Or would you like to empower your cannons?
I feel we're close at the moment, so let's go with cannons to start.
All right,
They're loaded that so well.
Give me a Tinker's Tools check using your intelligence modifier.
All right. Oh, so this thing. This is a 21.
Yeah. All right. So you see,
Smart,
you look,
okay?
so you
I
look,
went to
and
school.
underneath the ship, working on the power source, you see our wizard Fred here, and then you see right in front of you the cannon hums with a little bit of extra juice, which now you get to try to point at the enemy ship. So the cleric gets to make a perception check. They're usually okay at those.
Yeah. +8.
So the cannon is pointing the other way. So then we go to our gunner, who's now looking the wrong way, and now you have to make a attack roll with any stat of your choice, including, it could be a spell attack, could be a range attack of your choice, and now it will be at disadvantage. But because our gunner here juiced up the cannons, you would have had advantage, and now it is a straight roll.
School works.
So I'm gonna add dexterity to it. So 19.
19 would definitely hit. Now, normally, like I said, a ballista does 3d10 damage. That is very unsatisfying. This arcane cannon does 18d10. Please roll that.
Oh, math.
All right, so let's go. We got 10, 15, 9. That's going to be 24. Yeah, this is like the part where, generally I would ask somebody to roll this online, but I wanted to see somebody chuck a whole bunch of dice. All right, so we've got 10, we've got another 10, we've got another 10. So that is a total of 96 points of damage, which overcomes actually the damage threshold of a ship. So you've actually done something to it. And now, because of this is a ship combat, the other cannon team is going to try to retaliate. And I'm just going to borrow your D20. The DM does this quickly to kind of keep the game moving. You look as their arcane cannonball sails over the ship and splashes in the water, doing absolutely nothing. You guys are lucky. I rolled a 2 on my firing die. So now that is one round of what would be ship combat. Now, because the captain had trouble steering the ship in the first round, now the second round, when the ships come about, the other ship will have a better firing angle. So that way, all of the checks on the party side will be at disadvantage because of the captain, including the next captain's check. Good job, Captain. Fired.
All right. So this is another wisdom.
Yes.
Let's clear that. Yeah, that's gonna be 13.
13.
Yeah.
So the captain has had a few drinks, as captains sometimes will, and is having a little bit of trouble steering the ship.
He's gotta get home. He's got things to do.
Yeah,
We're going the wrong way.
Which brings us to our loader to shove another cannonball into the cannon.
You guys are wasting my time. 12. Whoa!
Yeah, so because of the way the ship is now swaying a little bit with the captain, you see that the cannonball hits the ground. Now, that would be detrimental, so generally you want to have your players doing stuff that is possible. So you give them one chance to re-roll something, and generally this is the important one you want to save your re-roll for. Because without a cannonball, your cannon doesn't fire.
Do I have advantage? How about initiative or something? Inspiration.
Inspiration,
Oh,
sure.
How about we'll do inspiration?
Sure.
Guidance.
Today, yeah.
I'm gonna borrow one of your special dice. Oh, that's double 14, so
All right,
plus
so
8, 22.
So the barbarian manages to pick up the cannonball as it was rolling away from him and shove it into the cannon, which will then bring us to our below decks engineer. So, hull, sails, cannons.
Well, being below decks, I trust our captain has us firmly on task.
So you would think that, but because of the way the ship is swaying, you're kind of like holding on to stuff, so you actually have disadvantage on this
I
check.
know, but obviously though we didn't get hit by their cannonball, so we don't need to worry about defenses at the moment. But just because we're going a little sway, I'll work on speed this time. Let's
Okay.
get some speed.
So then when you see the sails the sails of the jammer hum to life, and that would raise the armor class of the ship by 3, making it a little harder to hit. So then it brings us to our person aiming the cannons at disadvantage to try to, as the ship is swaying because of our drunk captain.
It's a party bullet. Hey.
10 plus 18.
So despite all this, the person aiming the cannon grits their teeth and points it correctly at the other ship. And now you may fire when ready.
Things are going wrong, your aim is good.
19. Oh, disadvantage.
Oh.
There you go.
So 20.
So 20, and again, once again, we'll slam into the other ship, even at disadvantage. So please roll me the 18d10.
18d10.
Wow.
You're the captain, get all the credit for seeing
Oh,
this, right?
yeah, of course.
18.
There you go. And we got
Gotta
A
love
lot of
D&D Beyond.
dice. Yes. We have
106 points of damage to the enemy ship. Now the enemy.
Everybody goes,
Now,
Yarr!
big galleons, inspiration. So big galleon ships generally have about 400 hit points. Could you imagine trying to chew through a hull of a ship doing 3d10 each round? Not happening in any time frame. So this will keep this will make your ship combats a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more exciting. Because when you get hit, it's also your ship is having big holes blown out of it. It's kind of just a way to amplify at you and make your naval combats a little bit more exciting.
Can I cast mending?
Yes, actually, after the fight, because it takes a minute.
To heal like the hole in the ship?
After, yes.
How many minutes do you think?
Many.
So that leads me to, like, before you would get into the combat, you see it coming.
Yes.
Would you then be able to like do like pre-buffs? Like I should have given him like a blast.
Yes, and that is kind of like when the DM kind of will set the scene. This was just like the actual just bare bones extra mechanics to possibly help your naval
We were
combats.
too busy drinking.
Yeah.
This was quite a surprise.
Yeah, so the other ship just kind of showed up.
Enchanting.
The night of encounters showed up, we started firing.
Yeah, it started with.
Blasting?
Yeah, exactly.
You could say.
Start blasting. It's a rival
Yeah,
party.
so this time the ship, even with the extra boost of it, would have got hit. Now, when your ship gets hit in this sort of thing, the ship rattles, the ship takes a whole bunch of damage. You can kind of like flavor it as a DM however you would want it to happen. And then once again, and then unless the captain can make that disadvantage sailing check, the next round will also be at disadvantage.
Yeah. Disadvantage.
All right, I'm gonna use real dice instead of digital dice. Do you mind if I use these? All right, thanks.
Never trust the algorithm.
No.
Please don't fit.
All right, that is an 11.
Consistent.
Yeah. So somebody made this person a captain. They probably should have.
Fine, that's pretty decent.
So in your rule set, do you play with attuning to the Spelljammer helm?
That would be a thing, yeah.
Okay, because that's another thing that you can kind of do to spice up yours is having a Spelljammer helm to Spelljammer helm battle where you're basically trying to take over the other person's ship.
Yep. So that's kind of another way that if you're doing Spelljammer as opposed to an actual like sailing ship, that would kind of be kind of make things more exciting as well. It's another layer of adding to the combat, because what we want to do, because when you're in combat should be quick and it should be exciting. It should have consequences. It should feel rewarding. And currently with the regular rule set, as we've been saying, naval combat just doesn't quite get there. So that's where, as dungeon masters, we have to kind of improvise and provide different mechanics to help keep the game going. That's kind of a good kind of baseline. And if anybody has anything that they would like to add.
I use side initiative whenever I'm doing any sort of naval battle. So it's in the DM's guide somewhere buried in the options, where it's one side goes and the other side goes. So I play it as captain versus captain on a straight roll. So that captain and his crew goes first. So the captain does any movement with the ship. The crew can go in any order that they choose. And I encourage like teamwork, like throw somebody overboard, or you're doing a kind of a group spell together or something along those lines, stacking your things. When that side is done, the other side goes. So the other ship will go, then the other crew will go. The potential for single focus battle of like you're just destroying one thing really quickly because you have so many attacks going at one thing can be a little detrimental as a DM, but at the same time, it's really fast.
Yeah, and combats, when they start to bog down and drag and take a long time, it disengages the players. So like so we are always looking for ways as DMs to make combat more streamlined and keep it all moving. Anything?
Well, I mean, I'm going to throw the curveball in there.
Yeah.
So I'm a warlock, and I have an invisible imp. Looks like we're probably within 60 feet of the other ship.
You could be if you sailed correctly.
Oh yeah. Let's say I was, and they could kind of see in one of these portholes, and I was looking through its eyes. Maybe I could misty step onto the lower decks of the ship.
That would be 30 feet.
Dimension
30.
door.
Sorry, dimension door.
You can
I
dimension
did
door.
prepare dimension door.
You can dimension door 500 feet.
All right, so then I'm definitely getting on board the inside of their ship, whether I can see it or not, with dimension door, and then cause some havoc.
Yeah, so like I said, anything that like you
Fireball?
Yeah. So like the thing again with naval combat, as long as the fireball breaks the threshold of the ship, it will actually do something.
Amazing.
Right. So like that's the kind of thing that's the way it's written. Like the damage is from the ship to ship, unless you're ramming each other.
It takes forever.
It will take forever to make it work. So you gotta kind of figure out something among your players that will help get the kind of creative juices flowing, like, dimension dooring onto the other ship, creating extra mechanics that will amplify your combat, empowering your players to make decisions that can aid in whatever sort of mechanic that you guys do.
Haste.
Yeah, like you can make haste so you can so somebody can take care of two of the actions while somebody goes and starts killing the other crew, or burning their sails or something along those lines. Those are all options that can kind of make a ship combat a little bit more accessible, because there's nothing, because I played one module, I won't name it, but I played one where there was a ship combat, and by the end of the 5th round, nobody had done anything.
It's slappy.
And it's like, so like that's kind of like one of those things that we're trying to avoid when we're running games, is those really grindy encounters that put your players to sleep. Anything from the audience? Any questions on anything that we've talked about, or anything else as we are here?
So if he fails to load the cannon, do I need to make an intelligence check because I'm from behind to see if I notice that he didn't load it?
Yeah, that is absolutely something that can happen. You can see the cannonball rolling.
Okay, because then I might, instead of firing because I know there's nothing in there, then would I then have the opportunity to go, you're sucking, blast for your next one?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And there would be guidance.
I'm not saying you're sucking.
Oh, I totally am.
She casts sober on the couch.
No.
Should you treat the ship as an NPC or player character?
I like to when the option is there, because that kind of like, especially if it's a ship that your party is traveling on a lot, and that way you can kind of, again, give them a reason to want to keep their ship going, kind of thing.
So when it comes, especially wizard characters, when it comes to spells like Unseen Servant, Animate Dead, whatever that creates servants or allies. How are you ruling that when it comes to the ship? Because they could theoretically get the help action.
Absolutely, they could. You could even have your undead zombies or skeletons that you control doing some of these actions that can be done by someone who doesn't have to think very hard. And that would be freeing up your party to do other things. It's like, again, using the tools that you have within your group to make the game more fun for everyone, which is the main goal that we all want to do. Is we all want to be having fun while we are playing games.
The biggest thing that I do when I'm doing ship to ship, because I run this here, I have an NPC running the ship and like it actually guiding the ship, right? So the players can be players on the ship. Most of the weapons that you see that are written in all the Spelljammer Adventures guides usually take about 5 or 6 people. So that's your whole party on a ballista. That's not a lot of fun at sometimes, right? In my game that I run here, I've created auto gnomes that are the ship's crew. So there's 5 or 6 of them that'll go to the ballista or the mangle or whatever, do that action for the players so the players can do spells or try to jump across to the other ship and do some really kind of Pirates of Panzan kind of actions. That's what I like to do.
Yeah, and I saw,
How would you handle if you were a DM and you wanted to implement a layer action thing where if the ship started taking damage, it started to sink? Like, how would you?
Yeah, so like at some point, like if your ship has taken enough hull damage, it's going to start coming apart. It's going to start sinking. Like I said, this is where like the game mechanics kind of fail the DMs a little bit, and the DMs kind of have to improvise like on how they want to play that. What I would do is like you would start seeing the ships start to list, and then that maybe provokes your characters to come and think of something like, hey, my wizard knows fabricate. Maybe I can patch this hole somehow if they have that. If they don't, maybe it's time to abandon ship and try to steal their ship. There's this kind of like, so like there's kind of like little bits of encounter magic you can kind of have happen that will empower your party to make decisions because you want them active in whatever is happening.
If they were in orbit, I'd just start nosediving the ship.
There you go.
Like literally, you're going to crash into the planet in 5 rounds. What are you going to do?
Would you apply fall damage immediately?
When they hit.
Well, only when they hit.
But for a water battle, I would run it that at initiative count 0, that let's say about 5 feet worth of water is probably coming up every round within the ship.
Yeah, that's another kind of give it like that timer where like, hey, look, you guys only got so much time before your ship is underwater.
Yeah.
And you can even make it, you can even kind of see if it's not kind of provoking enough reaction, you can make it a little higher next round.
And add a Kraken.
That's always an option.
Oh, okay. Oh.
When the bard starts
I was
playing.
going to ask about environmental effects. So, inclement weather, or
Whirlpools and stuff like that.
whirlpools, or even ship movement in itself, because you're not always going to be broadside to broadside. The other ship should have a chance.
Yeah, you guys can kind of swing around each other, and that's kind of something that you can absolutely add to your kind of game mechanic. What I actually like to do when I do this is I have these kind of off the map so that the crews are, and I have 2 smaller things that are actually the ships on the screen. Right, and that way you have the crews still kind of working on the ships off to the side, but you have like a little bit more of like a thing for the captain to kind of maneuver with and take different actions.
And remember, in space we're 3D.
Yes.
Right, so that's the biggest thing comparatively to like a ship battle, like a naval battle or something, where all of a sudden this can go, if it has like a 60 fly speed, it's up here. Right, it really adds to the kind of dynamic of what's going on. If you got
Would you say they have the high ground?
Well, I never go beneath that because it's literally below me.
All right.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in my game. Yeah.
There's also like the gravity flip, right?
Yeah.
So you hit a certain point, and now your ships are kind of the opposite way because of the way the gravity plane in Spelljammer works. There's a whole bunch of fun tools that a DM
Yeah,
can
you can manipulate lots of things, like the air envelope as well.
How do you keep from pigeonholing players by their class? Like putting them in these certain roles.
Well,
how do you keep it like?
Well, that's just it, right? Like if you know your party,
Yeah.
you can kind of have it so that like you can either tailor make it for them, or if you're writing a adventure for something like Adventures League, you can kind of give them like, so we need a crew. Who wants to do what, not who's the best at, so you're stuck doing this. Because it'd be hilarious if the barbarian was the ship captain.
What if the warlock that's the ship captain is just a shit captain?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like I said, you're always free to kind of manipulate and move things around as a DM. You can even change it so that, like, say instead of you want your barbarian to be your ship captain, so you can flip around ability scores 4 checks just to keep the ship steady, because there's a storm now. You need an athletics check to hold the wheel. Right, as opposed to, like, so it'd be strength and water vehicles as opposed to wisdom, which it traditionally is.
See, I have an 8 strength. Can I load the cannon?
If you have 8 strength, you can be like, I cast Bigby's hand and use that to shove the cannonball. And there's always options. So depending on what your party has.
Animate cannonball.
Yeah, there you go. You cast animate objects on the cannonballs and just.
Cannonball and skip loading.
There you go.
Completely.
You're thinking he has a personality, aren't you?
Or you can use it in the background for Big B's and literally go huge, grab cannonball and start throwing it.
Yeah. Like I said, there are always options as a dungeon master. It's just a matter of kind of like unlocking the potential of your group and like never be scared to make changes if they don't work. At the end of the session, just say, guys, I tried something. I'm sorry. I'll do something different next week. Like, there's no shame in like trying to learn by trying to do something fun.
With that being said, how would you have to, if there is a player who seems overly too powerful for the scenario, how do you?
So give me an example of how, like, what character, like
12th level wizard. He doesn't need a cannonball. He has fireball.
So that's the thing, right? So you make it so like you do what I did with the arcane cannon. You make it so like the fireball's never going to do 18d10. So you incentivize a different side of strategy. Then I'm just going to cast 2 fireballs on the other ship. You can kind of make it so that it's more of a group thing as opposed to, well, now this one character can kind of just do everything. Yeah. Or so, oh man, that ship's protected by, it's got this wall of force that kind of sits here and blocks fireballs. Now you got to think of another way around it. And there's always options to kind of play with, but like with your party to kind of make things challenging.
And if you have the same party, you kind of know your players. You know who's going to try to pull that gag, right? That they're going, like, I'm that guy at my table. Like in my home group,
I often am also that guy at my table.
So and my DM's really great, where she knows exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do some stupid stuff, and she always has a plan in her back pocket to foil every single time. I don't know what it is.
But yeah, so like it's just a matter of like if you're doing like we do or we're doing here, where we're doing Adventures League, and you don't know your party. Again, you're always kind of able to at least do something to kind of change things slightly to make things make more sense and make things work out. And again, always encourage the group play as opposed to like, well, now this guy's the one most powerful character. He's the chosen one. Now he can do anything. There's ways around that as a DM. It's just a matter of figuring out what those ways are. And to do that, it needs to be kind of tailored to each situation. There's no perfect Swiss Army knife.
That's honestly why I like doing side initiative, because it encourages the players to work as a team, right? It gives you the opportunity to, like, oh, I'm going to launch this player, I'm going to cast this spell, I'm going to do that. You can really tag team kind of like lots of really cool moves that way.
No, yeah, whenever one of my players, when I am DM, gets overpowered, I tend to make the rest of them just as overpowered and then just even again.
That's what I say. Empower the rest of your party in some way, right? Like if you're the DM, like Adventures League kind of has its own thing, but if you're running your own game, like, you got that one guy who's super powerful. Look, they have some magic items that you guys found in this treasure trove. As long as you're comfortable elevating encounters to now compensate for a much stronger party, you can kind of do things that will give your other party members like more incentive and more power to kind of also feel like they're engaged.
Or give them a cursed magic item and drop them down a couple levels.
That is also
throw some exhaustion on them.
Astral Dreadnought.
There's lots that you can do.
Yeah, there's always like you were saying, poisoning them, giving them levels of exhaustion, you know, oh man, you missed that somebody poisoned your ale. Jeez, that sucks, Mr. Captain.
That's just regular alcohol, okay?
No, yeah, I just kind of do for the chaos. So as
Yeah.
soon as one gets powerful, let's add more chaos.
Again, that is completely a strategy if you are comfortable running an over-tuned encounter, right? Because sometimes that is complicated. It makes a lot of extra moving parts, and some DMs are obviously going to have some trouble, but other DMs like myself, I love over-tuning encounters for super strong parties. It's kind of like a wheelhouse of mine.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry.
we'll go with one.
Is it possible to have combats with more than like 3 or more ships, or does that get too complicated?
It's up to like effectively. So if you have multiple ships, then you got to keep track of multiple things, which is fine as long as you kind of have your idea of how you want the flow to go. So if you can have like an entire like fleet battle where you just have like, instead of rolling for each individual ship, you do like they do in some of the DDoL epics where you have siege damage. Or like every so often when something happens, you just have to tell everybody, all right, everybody make a dex save. And if everybody gets lower, and whoever gets lower than say like 15 or something, they take some sort of effect from the chaos around them in the battle. You don't have to necessarily control every ship. You can kind of just have that also impacting in a way that makes it feel like a bigger scale encounter.
You can just role play out the battle.
Yeah.
You know, just say what's
Definitely
happening.
tough to DM though, because there's a lot of mechanics that you got to keep track of, especially when you're getting more than 2 of everything. It's like more of 2 monsters.
That was actually my question.
Oh, okay, there you go. Anybody have any other, and again, you can keep it to naval, you can kind of broaden it now that we're all here. We've got a very kind of like varied experienced group of DMs here. If anybody just has any regular D&D questions.
So I know my group once experimented with like just pooling house pools of like certain groups of creatures if we had like large groups.
Okay.
And then like at like certain points, oh this person said, that person said, depending on who they were all attacking. Like
You're talking about like older school, like mob style encounters?
yeah,
Or?
like if like you know, if like we ran into say like a giant group of bandits, like all of them have like one.
Yeah, everything has like a 1 hit point or whatever.
Yeah.
You're just kind of mowing through it. That you can almost do cinematically, right? You can have your characters roll, like, you know, roll me, you know, we'll do this cinematically this time. Everybody roll like 5 attacks and narrate how you want to mow through this easy encounter, right?
Previous question asked about, touched upon siege options.
Yes.
And multiple targets. How would you go about treating siege monsters or siege effects, such as the Earthgolems siege attacks against defenses?
So like that sort of thing is already written into the stat block. They do double damage when they hit an object of some kind, ships or vehicles, which are technically objects, that they would do double damage.
Because it might happen where
It absolutely
water
might.
elemental comes over on the tidal wave, hits the ship.
Yeah, the water elemental is at the tip of the tidal wave with its fist up, right? Like it's a thing that can
The
happen.
wizard summoned it.
Yeah, or the wizard.
I have a social life.
Finally, the wizard does something.
So,
After a long time.
so I'm a pretty new DM for the most parts. I'm running a horror game for my players. I was wondering if you all had any advice for kind of tuning horror for D&D, especially when characters such as wizards can get all types of wacky stuff to...
What kind of horror?
Yeah, first exactly.
Because that's kind of a pretty broad spectrum.
More like,
Like, what's a movie example then?
The Thing.
The thing.
Okay, like John Carpenter's original 1974 or 80s in there. Okay,
Yeah, like,
the Wicked movie. Yeah.
yeah, creepy monsters that go around with a little distrust going around as well.
Yeah, so you do things like you have, so for like that's all a matter of setting like this kind of setting the tone, so to speak. So like, you know, say they're going through a castle dungeon of some variety, for just a broad example that's very common in D&D. And they all of a sudden, like all the torches in the hallway go out and now it's dark. Maybe you're super tuned wizard, maybe he has dark vision, maybe he doesn't. If he does, maybe make it magical darkness. Now there's some kind of spooky effect that's happening. Even your dark vision doesn't work. There are always ways to kind of tweak things. It's just a matter of like, There's like figuring out, like looking at some different monster stat blocks, finding things that can like that are like creepy monsters, such
Welcome
as
to Barovia.
yeah, like you can even like not use the traditional like undead. You can use things like star spawns. When they have advantage, they just maul the crap out of heroes, and with the way that they work. And if you get like as a DM, you can be like, okay, well these star spawns have devil's sight. Now they can see in the dark when your party can't. If like you've got that like super tuned character or party.
Another good one is to use illusions. So a lot of people, unless they say, I think this is an illusion,
yeah,
you can draw whatever kind of picture you want. They can look back behind them and suddenly it looks like a totally different place.
Like they got there's the spell Major Image. Maybe the person who's running the castle is an expert illusionist and has set up spell glyphs with Major Image around to kind of have things running around in different places as the party walks by. And that way, if it's an illusion, you'll be like, all right, that looks like, you don't say that looks like, you say there's a giant monster behind you. You see it, it's got all of this like tentacles or whatever flavoring you want to have in the monster. And you tell your party, like, what do? If they attack, now they're burning resources on an illusion. Right? It works once or twice and you got to change it up.
When I first started DMing for my home group and coming up with things like a horror or whatever genre, I would pick my favorite movie scenes.
Yeah.
And literally recreate the movie scenes with my little twist in it, and then play through that. Where it's something that I know and I'm very comfortable with. I know the story works at the same time of the steps that go through it, and I find players kind of really like, oh my god, is this Alien? Like they'll do that kind of thing at the table, and you get a little more buy-in at the same time, right? Like pick media that you like, that like The Thing. I would do like scenes from The Thing itself and go, okay, this works, and how do I make this into D&D now?
I mean, I'm all about setting the mood. Like when I'm at somebody's house, I'll have my speaker, but I don't put it at the table. I put it far away from the table, so things can be brought up or down at my will, and they're from somewhere else that's not close by, so it's easily forgotten about until it pops up.
It's really scary. It's a good effect because you forget that
like
there.
never be afraid to also add that kind of like extra aspect of like obviously you're limited to what you have and what you're capable of setting up, and you can always learn. There's always YouTube tutorials on how to do things. Like set up a little smoke machine, and now you've got like fog rolling across your battlefield, and that kind of like sets the mood and kind of gets your group kind of into it. I think there's always methods of like creating like an atmosphere that don't even necessarily need the game mechanics. It just depends on what you're comfortable setting up.
Yeah, so like I had a DM once, and this is one I did where we played, and where we played characters that lost their memory. We all woke up, and he used notes. So like we're sitting there, like you wake up, someone has a bump on the head. They handed me a note and says you hit him. But I don't know why I hit him. I don't know what happened. It's like you're the one that knocked him out. And it's like they would absolutely like I'm keeping the secret. I don't know why I hit him. And it unraveled this crazy story. And we eventually found that some wizard would burn through spell scrolls to give everyone modified memory. And we just didn't know what was going on. And I was on the inside because the CF knew me. He made me this undercover agent. So eventually started just giving me more information. I'm like, what the hell's going on? So like, you can play with that too and sow the mistrust. You can be like, you'd say things like, and then people see it, you just watch your players try to play against each other.
Another good one is do some backstory development with your players. Ask them to define what are their greatest desires, if you want to play the Lucifer angle, or what are their greatest fears, right? And then work that into your game,
Yeah, and you're gonna get that player's like, my character fears nothing.
Don't bring nothing into the game. It's an NPC.
Yeah. So basically, you put them in a room and there's nothing around them.
And the door's gone.
There's no door. What do you do? Right? Kind of flavor things that way. It's actually something that was in a.
Yeah. That's the worst mode to mess with players.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you, what I use in person games is a lot of crafting now. It's expensive if you start buying like Warlock stuff. I highly recommend DIY crafting. It's super, super cheap. If you go on YouTube, and I think it's Black Magic Crafting, it's a guy from Winnipeg, Gotoba, that's where I came from. He does stuff out of styrofoam, that is ridiculously good and dollar store paint. Like so I would highly recommend DIYing yourself because there's a lot of really good stuff. I think it's Black Magic Crafting, but he does unreal stuff for ridiculously cheap if you have the time, of course, right?
Yeah, it's all a matter of how much, like, never feel ashamed if you're the guy like me who shows up to the table with a handful of minis for the session and some like poorly hand drawn maps, because I suck at drawing maps.
Or candy.
Yeah, I've seen DMs like just be like, I don't have minis, but this Hershey's Kiss is a skeleton. If you kill it, you get the Hershey's Kiss. Like,
Oh, totally.
so you see people making decisions based on what candy they want instead of like, what's the most optimal decision.
They have the GM bringing like grandma candy out that's been like 6 years old.
No.
And it's like, no, I'm running away from the monster. I don't need the encounter. That's good. We're good. We're good.
Five pieces of candy stuck together.
Well, yeah, you can use Starburst. They're like the perfect size, and if you get the same color, you can build a large creature.
Yeah.
1 inch by 1 inch
Like
square.
I had a giant mammoth be a Kit Kat bar, like a full size Kit Kat bar rolling across the screen, and across the table. And I had the giant that was riding the mammoth was a big Kinder Egg.
I think my next one I'm going to write is going to be a big Easter bunny. So I'll have a chocolate Easter bunny going around so everyone can eat it after. That sounds like a
There
good
you
yeah.
go.
So, how's about a tall can of beer? What's that going to be? A giant?
Yeah, probably.
All right.
Jolly Ranchers are gelatinous cubes.
Yeah, exactly. You can bring like, some Jello. You make sure
For the captain.
Yeah, and that was a really good session, everyone. We're kind of getting late.
Remember to session responsibly.
Any closing remarks before we wrap this up? It is almost 8:00. Anybody have any final kind of questions or any bits of anything that they would like to query us while we are here?
We're here all weekend too, so like feel free to.
Yeah, like
contact
we're
us.
always up here. We love talking to people. If you have questions, come by and ask us. If you want to figure out more about what we do in general with Adventurers League, we do events all across the GTA, kind of like here and there, spread out, spaced out, mostly con-based. Also some single events, like our upcoming one at Stormcrow Manor. But
Yes. So you want me to do the final?
please do the final announcement.
All right. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we work with Fan Expo. They're the ones that are letting us stay late here at no expense to us. So thanks very much to them. If you want to see more of this sort of stuff from us in a online way, go to meetups.fanexpohq.com, or if it's easier for you, you can find us on our Discord server. Just go to unitethefactions.com. That's our group. We have business cards over on the table or QR codes to link to our site. And we'll post announcements. We usually have an event once a month where we'll play a multi-table interactive game where every single table is playing the same adventure, but there are interactive elements and different quests that every table will complete to help each other finish an end goal. We call this an epic. We'll actually be hosting one tomorrow night. Yeah, called Drums of the Dead. We unfortunately already kind of sold all of our tickets out for that. All 11 tables are full.
Yeah,
But
that got people were racing the door at 4:00 on Thursday, being like, "We heard about this thing. What are we doing?" And we were explaining to them like, "Yup, sign up."
But like I said, we run these events once a month, usually online and then in person, kind of alternating at different in-person cons, or sometimes stuff like Stormcrow Manor, which is what we're doing on September 10th. I actually think that one's sold out already
Is it
too.
really?
Yeah,
Holy smokes.
you could check. If you see the posters here on the tables, you can check out the QR code, see if there's any space left there. But we're also, always looking for dungeon masters as well. So, if you want to either play with us on Monsters of the Month or help us out at one of our epic events, again, just join us on our server, and we'll probably be back doing this at another Fan Expo or similar event before you know it.
Yeah. We'll be back as long as they keep letting us.
Yeah, pretty much.
If anybody wants a free adventure, I wrote one specifically for Fan Expo Canada, and then I premiered it yesterday. It's on the DMs Guild. I put a QR code there, so if anyone wants it, there's a 100% discount free adventure for you. Thanks for showing up.
Thank you
Yeah,
guys
thanks,
for all coming
everybody.
out. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Angela.
Thanks, Ange.
I didn't want to.
Yeah, it's sorry.
Take it out of the plexi. Sometimes the plexi screws up the QR code.